Hello, everyone. I just want to thank you, everyone, for coming and joining us today for Earth Day. As we settle in, I just want to go ahead and do a short introduction for the university and also want to invite our moderator, Tom Hammett, and our two presenters, Grace Williams and Freyo, to do short introductions. But first, let me just say thank you for being here and welcome to Future Generations University. Here we believe in the power of people working together to transform communities. We offer a master's degree in applied community development using the principle of learning while doing. Individuals from around the world apply methods and tools to create sustainable change within their own communities, which serve as their individual classrooms. The master's program guides students to tackle real-world community challenges in areas such as strengthening local economies, livelihood development, environmental conservation, health, peace building, regenerative agriculture, education, food security, and much more. Our unique seed scale methodology ensures that solutions are not only effective, but also locally driven and sustainable. Today, we are proud to celebrate dedicated changemakers who are using what they've learned to uplift their communities, addressing pressing challenges and inspiring others to do the same. This success sharing session is a platform to highlight incredible work, share valuable insights, and foster connections across our global network. We're excited to have you join us as we learn from one of our outstanding alumni and one of our exceptional research faculty, and explore how they've applied education to drive meaningful change worldwide. Tom, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you very much, Chris, and delighted to be part of this program. I'm the moderator. I'm Tom Hammett. I served both as a Future Generations University research faculty member and teaching faculty member. I'm a professor. I also just finished a 30-year career at Virginia Tech in Blacksburg, Virginia. But before that, I was an international consultant and served in several capacities around the world. My major focus has been in international development, has been curriculum development and university institutional development. At home, I look at non-timber forest products such as maple syrup and medicinal plants. I'm going to turn it over to Frio for his introduction.
Actually, I'm gonna have Grace go next and then Freyo. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Grace Williams. I'm alumni from Future Generations. I graduated in 2024. I'm also on the board of Friends of the Tug Fork River. We do water conservation. We're a watershed group in southern West Virginia and eastern Kentucky. I'm located in Mingo County, West Virginia. I'm also the director at Big Laurel Learning Center, where we do environmental education and youth education in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains.
Thank you, Grace. And Freyo, would you introduce yourself and then I'll have you start your presentation.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. First and foremost, happy Earth Day. My name is Firew Kefyalew, from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, where I'm right now. I'm a former academic director for Africa, Future Generations, and also faculty, now research faculty, uh, research associate with Future Generation University. I'm the founder of a social movement in Ethiopia called Plogging Ethiopia. I'll talk more about it in a minute. I also work for an international organization called Pure Earth, which basically deals with lead poisoning. I'm the East Africa director for that program. Um, yeah, and then I'm also the board chair for future.org. I think that's what also important to say. Thank you. Okay. So, um, well, as I mentioned, I'll be talking about Plogging Ethiopia, sustainable organic movement. So I think it's very important to um, say a few words about plogging. I mean, it's not in the mainstream English vocabulary. Some call it plucking, some plogging, and then what have you. Plogging has its roots in the Swedish language. Plogga, uh, so which is basically to jog, walk, and pick up. So it is a combination of physical exercise while at the same time picking up trash from the environment. So when I say about organic movement, I mean, Plogging Ethiopia is organic in the sense that it is not registered, for instance, as a civil society organization. So it started with a family. I'll talk more about that. And, grew over the last 5 years as a social change, movement in the country. Next slide, please. Next slide. Yeah. So yeah, I've talked about this. Blogging is just it's just simple but powerful activity. Simple simply because it combines jogging and walking with picking up trash, plastic. We focus on plastic trash in Ethiopia. So by so doing, we promote environmental responsibility while improving physical health. So you stoop, squat to pick up, while you're jogging and walking. So that's very important for physical health, uh, and then it means for both fitness and sustainability. And we do that every week, every Sunday in Ethiopia. Next slide, please. It's a global movement. It started in Sweden, and spread to Europe, yeah, North America, Latin America, and then Africa. I think it's important to highlight that I used to do this for the last um, 30 plus years myself. So it was only 5 years ago when I came across the word flogging and then intrigued because it is a word that I never, came across. And then found out that actually it means, walking, jogging, and picking up plastic trash. And I said, okay, so about starting social change movement in Ethiopia with plugging. People will be curious, to learn more about plugging, and then that would give me an opportunity to explain about it. Yeah, so otherwise it's a global movement, and then there are chapters in countries including Spain, and in Africa you also have like Algeria, Nigeria, Kenya. Still young though. Next slide, please. Um, so in terms of local relevance in Ethiopia, blogging has been adapted to our realities in Ethiopia, using existing public spaces and community energy. That's what we meant, what we mean by organic. So uh, it's about protecting the environment in a culturally meaningful way. We didn't import anything new to educate people or induce, the community, the society with some idea or with some demand, but it is blended with, a culturally appropriate existing practices, and then it has local relevance. People walk, jog, and then also the big litter. So it's about bringing these two together into a meaningful package. Next slide, please. So it has a grassroots beginning in Ethiopia. It started as a family pastime activity. So a busy father, I always wanted to have quality time with my sons. I have three sons, and that has been really challenging. So how it started with taking my boys to the outskirts of the city, walk, in the forest, chat with them, have some quality time with them, uninterrupted and undisturbed. And um, one day when we were walking into a park where we actually regularly meet to do our vlogging, my youngest son asked me the question, why do people throw trash while there are trash bins? And this is 6 years ago. He's now 13 plus. I was very young, so at 7. I didn't have the answer because he's right. There were really good plastic, dustbins in the park, a new park, which was the Prime Minister's, project. You can imagine how meticulous they can be, in having that park. So my son was, it's clean and attractive, and then it has dustbins, but people are throwing trash. Why is that? And I said, I really don't know the reason. But we can do one thing, and we can pick it and then put it in the plastic and in the dustbin, and then write about it, and educate people. So that's how to start. So we started to use the social media to write about that experience. But my sense, dividing roles, one collecting data, one taking photos, and in the evening we'll sit together, compare notes, and I'll post about it, and gradually people start to join us. Next, please. So the movement since then has been powered by young people and local volunteers. Um, it is a zero budget movement. We don't get any funding from anyone. We don't ask funding. So if people, because they see value in what we do, want to support, they can support it in kind. In kind means, gloves and masks and trash bags. So it's a consistent and organized effort that we do, and it's uninterrupted. So for the last, to 6 years now, it's been going on uninterrupted every weekend. So we use social media to post announcements where we meet, because sometimes we go, as I said, it's organic. So if there is, so we announce and then let people know where we will be next, and people come and participate with that with us. So that has promoted organic engagement and then built strong community ownership over time. Next, please. The secret of our successful blogging movement is that it is consistent. As I said, we do that every weekend, mainly on Sundays. Sometimes when Sunday is a public holiday, then we'll have it on Saturdays. So it is continuous, uninterrupted activity. And then this has lent, credibility and trust to the movement, and also shows the consistency proofs that, the strengths of commitment and the viability of the model. Next, please. So, in implementing this organic movement, we look at the city scale framework. I try to relate it to the city scale framework. After I started, responding to my youngsters' questions, I said, okay, what can we do? To protect this park. And then what came to mind was, the city scale framework. So we started with what exists basically, with existing resources. It's a public space. So we didn't create anything. It's youth energy that we're using, and then community motivation, basically. So By so doing, we've avoided dependency on funding, and then we have successfully demonstrated that change can start with what is already available. Next, please. We have also demonstrated how partnerships can be built, with an organic movement like Plogging Ethiopia. We have informal partnerships with volunteers, communities, and institutions. Um, and interestingly, these partnerships have been very successful for instance, successfully advocating for regulations, laws, and even have our call to be an agenda in the parliament. Again, without us going there to sort of projectizing the movement. It's not a project. It's not a project. So it's so organic, and then uh, we are heard, and so many people know about us through this informal part. Next, please. Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Fiacre.
Oh, all right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Mm.
So another aspect of it is that it's about leadership and scaling. I mean, local leadership. So, uh, okay, are we good to go?
Go ahead, please. We can hear you.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So another aspect of it is about leadership and then the scaling, in this organic and unconventional movement, social movement. So every member of Plogging Ethiopia is a leader. And then, I mean, most of the participants in the weekly plogging activities are young people. We have participants from all walks of life, from senior government officials to young children, students, businessmen, and what have you. And each and every one of us has an opportunity to lead. And then so we believe the movement sustainability comes from the community ownership, and its potential to scale lies in a replication, behavior change, and gradual integration into larger systems. Next, please. Okay, so this graphic shows basically how the local leadership and scaling plugging in Ethiopia works. We establish a pilot community in Addis Ababa. So, as I said, we have this weekly plugging activity in this park, uninterrupted, every week, 52 plus times in a year. And then this gives us, champions to identify champions, leaders, and also, adapt it to the culture and the language of a locality, to identify coordinators, and of course volunteers. Then this grows, across regions. To the cities, Bahadar is a city, Hawassa, to replicate. Again, we don't go with the agenda and ask people to embrace it. We do what we do in the pilot community and use available resources at our disposal to write about it, share information, evidence, and see who would be interested to lead. And then the next level will be institutionalizing it, creating a national network, peer-to-peer learning, and also adapt to new contexts, and look at how to get sustainable funding. sustainable funding, again, in an organic manner. Next, please. So Plogging Ethiopia has, sustained regular activities for over 5 years, as I said, without financial support. So we call ourselves a zero budget movement. Um, and what does this demonstrate? It demonstrates the strength of community commitment and proves actually that the model is viable and long term. Next, please. It also brings about behavior change. How individuals view waste and public responsibility. Volunteers and participants, become more aware and engaged in maintaining cleaner environments. Um, and then young children learn to keep the environment clean through our activity. I think I may also add that it's not just only cleaning. During the tree plantation season, we also participate in planting trees. That's also another thing. And then we've planted and cared for thousands of trees in the park and elsewhere. Next, please. So, how do we do behavior change? What is the model that we taste and use through blogging? It's like combining fitness, community, and environmental responsibility. So basically, uh, we start with, I mean, the problem is, where you have plastic pollution, environmental apathy, inactive lifestyle, really recklessness, and then to bring that through Plogging Ethiopia, the activities of, weekend ploggings, fitness, exercise, and litter collection. And, that brings about, change in perception and attitude, by creating awareness, responsibility, action, and gradually habit formation. So, this, takes us from their problem to our shared responsibility. So responsibility will be shared. People will take the responsibility, and then it fosters, a healthier country, healthier Ethiopia. That tackling plastic pollution, as I mentioned earlier, we have successfully advocated for banning single-use plastic in Ethiopia, and then Plugging Ethiopia has been behind this law, advocating for it, and also active way of life. Next, please. Another element in the city scale is community engagement. I've talked about youth and local communities involved in our weekly blogging activities, and this has enabled them to have ownership, to build a sense of ownership and responsibility. And then, as you know, this is really important and essential for lasting environmental impact. Next, please. Well, then we talk about scaling. How do we do scaling without budget? So we codify the model. What does it mean? Just creating a simple plugging playbook, which allows us to replicate the model. It's not complicated. It's very simple. Clear guidelines for organizing sessions, safety, and communication makes it very easy for new communities to adopt the practice. So, I mean, that makes it easier. I mean, whoever is interested, whoever is aware can embrace and then use it. Next, please. So this is like the codification of the model, how it works. As I mentioned, we have physical exercise, physical fitness, and then environmental stewardship and community involvement. So from one level, from physical fitness, you go into environmental stewardship, and then that is like an immediate impact, and then awareness campaigns, collective action, and social change come through community involvement. And this gives us the systematic cycle of blogging, where we have logging sessions, waste collection. I mean, all that you see in the diagram, I don't need to go to the details. But all this is to have long-term impacts in terms of reduced pollution, healthier citizens, greener Ethiopia, behavioral change, national recognition, and also mental health. We also talk about mental health a lot about it. Next, please. Next. So another way of, oh, can I have the slide before this, please? Yeah. So how do we do scaling? So empowering local champions, by empowering local champions. And this is achieved by identifying and supporting local leaders in different cities and institutions. Uh, Again, in a very cost-effective manner. It could mean, having Zoom meeting and talking to them, or participating when they initiate their own local blogging activities, or inviting them over, um, when they come to Addis. These champions, we believe, drive the movement forward without requiring centralized control or funding. Next, please. Building systems again through cultures, through the existing culture is another thing that we see. So by turning plugging into regular habits and social ritual, we believe the movement can sustain itself, and that's what we are witnessing. When it is adopted culturally, I think that ensures long-term continuity beyond individual. And I have tested this over a period of time. When I travel, and then when I'm not around, people take leadership uh, because it is part of the culture, because we have leaders on standby who will step in to organize without having to rely on an individual or a group. Next, please. So, in conclusion, what is the future of blogging Ethiopian? I think we have proved that our approach, our organic approach, is sustainable, to bring about community-driven environmental action and social change without necessarily relying on external funding. So the future lies in scaling through replication, integrating into institutions like schools, and influencing policy, which we have been doing very successfully. By growing a culture rather than a project, can create long-term national and even regional impact. That is my presentation. Thank you very much for listening. Appreciate it.
Frio, thank you so very much. That was great. We're really pleased. We'll have time at the end for questions. We're going to move now on to Grace's presentation on the Tug Fork River. Go ahead, Grace.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me well, Tom?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Yeah, happy Earth Day. We're going to spin the globe a little from Ethiopia to the Tug River Valley. We're in central Appalachia, forms the border between Kentucky and West Virginia. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, the Tug Fork River is about 159 miles. It runs through 3 states and 8 counties. It has a 1,500 square mile watershed. Next slide, please. So you can see here some photos of people doing recreation on the Tug Fork River. It is a river that it provides habitats for native plants and animals, and also for recreation. It's also where the water comes from for many water facilities in the area. Yeah. Next slide, please. Let me make this so I can see it better. I think if I close out our participants. Great, so this is a map. I created this presentation in GIS, so it's also available as a story map on its own. I created this as a student in 2024, and I've been updating it over the last couple of years with new information and new stuff that we've done with the Friends of the Tug Fork River. So you can see here the headwaters begin, the Tug Fork River begins its journey as a small stream near the Virginia border in McDowell County, West Virginia. Next slide, please. Then continues north for what I mentioned, 159 miles. A large stretch of this river creates the border between West Virginia and Kentucky. Next slide. It then forms a confluence near Louisa, Kentucky, and Fort Gay, West Virginia. It converges with the Leviza Fork, and together they form the Big Sandy River. Next slide, please. And they then flow into the Ohio River. Great. Next slide, please. This is just giving us a little context. We'll talk more about some of our conservation efforts, but I wanted y'all to get to see the map and some of the geography surrounding. So unfortunately, some of Appalachia's rivers and streams, including the Tug Fork, are not as pristine as they appear at first glance. Next slide, please. Beneath the surface of the Tug Fork River, thousands of discarded tires are lodged in the riverbeds and banks. For decades, improper disposal, man, I'm having a really hard time reading this. Can you guys read this? Chris, can you make this screen bigger?
Let me see if I can. I will have to exit the presentation mode, so just 1 second here.
Uh-oh. Okay.
Sorry, back.
Well,
and does that help?
It looks about the same, but we'll just go with it. It's okay. I'll describe it to you guys. And if you want to read it, we'll share the link to the actual story map itself and y'all can read it later. We'll just keep talking about it. So basically all of these tires are in the Tug Fork River over decades of improper disposal. Is that?
I'm back at the slide that you said. So
Yeah, this is good. Yeah.
okay, next slide.
No, this is good. Stay here. So, yeah, go ahead. Next slide. So in order to remove these tires, they must first be located and pried loose by hand or with like a metal tool. We have these tire pulling tools. We first started out with like crowbars and mattocks, but we now have these tools that sort of like pry it loose like a hook. So you really have to get in the river and just pull them up one by hand. This picture shows them after they've been pulled loose. So they're not laying in the river like this. They're laying flat, pretty much buried in sand and silt and rocks and stuff. So they first have to be pulled loose. This has to happen at the end of the summer, early fall when the water levels are quite low, but the water is still warm enough for us to walk out in it and to pull them loose. Next slide, please. After volunteers pry the tires loose, they are then pulled to the side of the bank. There's a couple different operations of how this has been done. The Friends of the Tug Fork River has volunteer days, the Tire Tug of Wars. Then we partner with the DEP and some other organizations to help bring equipment and tools and people. And right here you see the Hydrotech vehicle, which can float in water and it can also drive on shallow water and on land. That is used in certain stretches, but here it is used to help pull these flat bottom boats, and the rows of tires, if it's a steep bank, they'll be pulled up the side of the bank with a winch at the top. You'll string like a chain through them and it pulls them up. Go ahead, next slide, please. This is another location. This is in South Williamson, Kentucky. Boat ramp there. The water was a little deeper there, and so they were lifted by this machine from these boats and then lifted to the banks. Go ahead, next slide, please. So as you can see, all of that work has to be done by hand. As I mentioned, a lot of these tires are really old, so hopefully it's not folks still dumping in the tires, but we have removed over 18,000 tires in the last 6 years. This is a map of several of the locations that the tires have been removed. You can see the numbers here are going to indicate the tire tug of war session, like the day it happened or the year it happened, and the number of tires that were removed. This map shows you Williamson, South Williamson, and West Williamson. So that's sort of one area there. Go ahead to the next slide. And we'll click through some of these quite quickly, but you can see one of the first dates was in 2019. And that section there, which is number 1, that purple button, it was over 2,000 tires there. Next slide, please. And then that was in 2020. We didn't do as much days and as many days that year because of COVID, but you can see that section. Next slide, please. Then in 2021, that section was 738 tires removed. Next section, or next slide. So then we were returned to the same area. You can see there the number 4 button is in the same place as number 1. So after another year or so of more water flowing down the river and more sediment being removed, a lot of those tires are in layers in the bed of the river. And so even though we removed 1,000 the year before, there were 1,000 more. Go ahead, next slide, please. That's button number 5, so that was 2022. Go ahead, next slide, please. And so then in 2022, we also expanded our reach. So this is further upstream near the community, the town called Matewan. That summer, there was over 2,000 tires removed there in, I think that's button number, what are we on, 6, 9? I'm not sure. Go ahead, next slide. So then in 2022, we also went further downstream. So that is between Kermit and Warfield. That's actually quite close to where I live and where Big Laurel Learning Center is located. The water there is much deeper. And so we were actually in the water, like up to our chests, like swimming through parts of the water to get to more shallow water to remove the tires. That section there, 851 tires. Next slide. And then here they were back upstream. This is 2023, again, between near the Matewan area. It says Burnwell there. 2,000 tires. slide, please. This is 2023, a little bit further upstream there as well. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is back in the same area there in Williamson where we started in 2023. So we do, it was several days each year throughout, the last weeks of August, September. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. (2024). Great. Next slide. This gives you a little bit of a further overview. That's sort of a wider view of the map area. Next slide. 2024 there. So you can kind of see this whole distance. I think we've got like 15 or 16 different spots that we had done over the course of 6 years. But that whole section of the river is still only like, I don't know, maybe 40 or 50 miles. So just keep that in mind when you imagine almost 19,000 tires being removed. Next slide, please. Great. Next slide. Great. So while all of those tires have already been removed within that 40-mile stretch of the Tug Fork River, this is just the beginning. There are thousands of more tires that remain in the river, and they continue to be uncovered year after year, and we will keep doing the work as long as we can and as long as we have support and energy and the volunteers to do it. Next slide. You see some of our trusty volunteers and our great members here in this photo as well. As I mentioned, there's still a lot of work to do. So we'll go over some of the other projects that we're doing as far as conservation efforts and as far as the future. So go ahead, next slide, please. So nearly 2,000 miles of creeks and streams in the coal fields of West Virginia and nearly 12,000 miles of creeks and streams nationally are negatively affected by acid mine drainage and industry runoff. When water flows through previously mined areas, it picks up heavy metals, as these metals such as iron, manganese, and others enter the streams. Recreation, drinking water, and aquatic species habitats are threatened. Buildings, roads, and other development within floodplains also contribute to pollution. Hilly and mountainous areas are particularly affected by this since there is limited flat land available for construction. Floodplains are often developed. If you know a little bit about West Virginia and Kentucky, you know that they are not only famous for their rustic beauty, but also their rich natural resources of coal, timber, and gas. And those industries often create runoff that ends up in our streams, whether that's just sediment or whether that's heavy metals or different levels like pH levels in our waters. Go ahead in the next slide, please. This map shows the Kentucky portion of the Tug Fork and Big Sandy watersheds. The streams highlighted in red are impaired with high levels of bacteria, often resulting from sewage contamination. So for residents in much of the Tug Fork River watersheds, hilly, rural terrain, public sewage is unavailable. Proper septic tanks are expensive or sometimes impossible to install for homes in narrow hollers and rocky hillsides. When proper sewage disposal and sanitation is unavailable, the wastewater and runoff ends up in ditches, groundwater, creeks, and eventually our rivers. So you can see there, the red streams are impaired. This is the data on the Kentucky side. So actually the different states compile their data different ways. And that's unique for our Tug Fork River because it actually runs straight through, or it has the borders of three different states really. But this just shows some of the data from the Kentucky side. Next slide. So with the hundreds of tributaries totaling thousands of miles of streams, this is all of the streams in the Tug Fork watershed you can see here. Those creeks trickle from the ridges and the mountainsides of 8 counties in 3 different states. This will kind of give us another glimpse into our watershed. Go ahead to the next slide. This is the Virginia counties, so this is the headwaters there. The dark or the thicker blue line there is the Tug River, and the little ones are the tributaries. Tributaries are smaller streams that run into the larger river. Next slide, please. So the Tug Fork River flows north. So as we continue north, you'll see the West Virginia counties. Those will be on the right-hand side there. McDowell, Mingo, and Wayne County, sort of on the right top side of the river. Next slide, please. And then our Kentucky counties are Lawrence, Martin, and Pike. Those are on like the bottom and left sides. Next slide, please. So these tributaries are flowing through neighborhoods, towns, mountainsides, and along the way, debris and litter and sediment and pollution and sewage and everything is everything that's on the ground and along those banks and roads can accumulate and make its way into the water. So here's a stream here. This picture was taken a couple years ago, but you can see a lot of erosion on the side of that bank, and then also a lot of debris, which that's often from flooding and trees and branches and stuff, but along the way that catches a lot of litter as well. So next slide. In every state there are streams. Streams are monitored for bacteria, metals, and aquatic life and sediment. Each of those factors indicate the overall health of this stream. So this is in areas all over, at least the US and probably other places, but these streams are monitored in order to see how much of a pollutant is in the water and how much is safe. So that's a TMDL is a total maximum daily load. So if you think of almost like a prescription, like this is the total amount that could be allowed. And if it's more than that, they'll recommend, you know, whether it's unsafe to swim in or unsafe to drink or unsafe to, you know, whatever, depending on the use of that stream. So we'll look a little closer at the total maximum daily loads of pollutants in the Tug Fork River stream. Next slide. So recent water monitoring efforts in West Virginia have shown that 117 of the Tug Fork River tributaries contain unsafe levels of fecal matter. So those are the orange or brownish streams on the map. And then this is caused by compromised sewage and septic systems. Note that the impaired streams in Kentucky and Virginia are not indicated on this map because they have separate data maps. And I did show some of Kentucky earlier. So according to the 2016 data, the entire length of the Tug Fork River was impaired for fecal coliform, including 546 miles of impaired streams. So that was 10 years ago. And we are monitoring streams, and we have been for the last couple years to continue to see which streams have improved, which streams can continue to improve. Next slide, please. Many streams also are compromised with high levels of iron, shown in red, and selenium, shown in purple. This can be caused by mine drainage and former mines, so often abandoned mines or closed mines. They continue to leak contaminants into our streams. And you can see those purple and red on the West Virginia side there. Next slide, please. So the Friends of the Tug Fork River are continuing to try and improve the condition of the rivers and its tributaries, and we constantly are looking for volunteers and community members and folks to join our efforts. We recently trained, I don't know, like 15 volunteers on how to be a water sampler and to test the tributaries. One of our community partners came out and did a class for a couple of trainees recently, and hopefully we'll have some more folks, citizen scientists, out testing water this summer. Next slide, please. And our group is continuing to grow. We have a Facebook group with, I'd have to double check, I think it's like 25,000 members now. And we are also continuing to have more community events. Here you can see our kids at paddle camp. That's been a relatively new initiative to try and not only improve the health of the river, but also to continue to rewrite the narrative, right? To get kids out there, not to be afraid, not to be scared of the river, and to embrace our region for its beauty and for its recreation, and kind of like let the public know an area that was once known for its pollution can become a beacon for outdoor recreation and tourism and enjoyment. Next slide, please. And this year we're expanding to another county. These are our paddle camp. Those were our paddle camp flyers for this summer. We'll have 2 coming up in June. And we're hoping to have, last year I think we had like 16 kids, and we'd only had the Tug Fork River one. And this year we are expanding to our county to the south of us, but upstream of us. And we're hoping to get as many kids there involved and families and keep rewriting that narrative. So that's upcoming. Next slide, please. And this was really exciting. So we recently partnered with several different community organizations and nonprofits, and we were able to install a trash catchment system. This was just last week, I think. So that's why the pictures of the trash catchment are not in the slide. I told Chris that I would try and get a picture of it, but it's almost like a pontoon, and it's anchored on either side of the banks. And it is anchored, it's anchored on either side of the banks, but it's floating in the stream. As runoff comes, like usually with rain, it's raining today, so maybe they're catching some trash. This will be one of the first rains since it was installed. And it has a grate on the back of it, and it will catch litter and debris as it floats down that stream. And then our caretakers will go out and empty it, and bag it up and dispose of it properly. So that was a really strong three-way partnership here recently that we were able to be a part of. Next slide, please. Wanted to mention the photos in this slide. They're all on our Friends of the Tug Fork Facebook page, and I give some photo credits to our photographers. I took not most of these pictures, so thanks to the folks on your screen here who took those pictures and shared them with us. All of this is also available on, as I mentioned, the story map that I created, and the layers and data are credited here for the folks who created the data on the streams. Next slide, please. Yeah, thanks for learning about Friends of the Tug Fork with us. Thanks for learning about our conservation efforts. You can find us online. Our website's friendsofthetugfork.org. You can also find us on Facebook. We have our page, and then we also have our group. Be sure to follow both. And then the story map, as I mentioned, that link is going to be hard to replicate. But if you Google our story map, Friends of the Tug Fork story map, or Reclaiming the Tug Fork story map, you should be able to find it. Thanks again.
Thank you, Grace, and thank you, Frio. We have plenty of time for questions. I'd like to get the discussion going. I'd like to go back to Frio to ask him a few questions just to get started here, and then we'll get to you, Grace, in just a moment. Frio, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Yeah,
I have
thanks.
a couple quick questions just to kind of get discussion going. One is, when you collect this trash, this waste, what happens to the waste? Is there some recycling? Is it compacted? And how do you support that effort? How do you support that effort?
Mhm, mhm. Very good question. So the park has over 250, I don't have the latest number, 250 um, cleaners who actually literally sweep, the streets and then what have you. And then, as I mentioned, there are dustbins. And there has been also a mini recycling plant in the park, a processing actually for recycling, shredding plant, mainly for plastic bottles for PETs. That's what they call them. Um, Otherwise, what we do is, separate it and leave it at an area where the cleaners could get it and remove it. So one suggestion has been, for Plogging Ethiopia also to do, sorting, brand auditing, and also, participate in recycling efforts. Um, However, again, I mean, if this happens organically, that's fine. If there are groups, organizations that would want to, or the government or the park administration that would want to, um, want us to do that's welcome. Of course, we would see our capacity because it's a volunteer movement. We don't want to dilute it. We don't, we'll be very careful to have money involved. Yeah. So yes, we collect it and leave it by the dustbins. There is a designated area. They come and collect it. Um, yeah.
Excellent, thank you. A second quick question for you is, you mentioned about getting partner organizations, getting other groups engaged, collaborators. How do you do that? Do you have an education program, or do you have some outreach that you do to engage these other organizations
Mhm.
and get them involved?
Um, so as I said, we use the social media effectively, I would say, and also we use the mainstream media. Um, I've worked for nonprofits for so many years, and then getting the mainstream media to come to you is very, very challenging. With Blogging Ethiopia, what we have succeeded in doing is to attract mainstream media, including national and international. I mean, the former VOA, including the former VOA and then BBC International, the British Broadcasting Corporation, and the main television stations and podcasts. So we use those, and that raises awareness. And groups, companies come and join us. As I said, we don't we go and educate when we get the opportunity. Yeah, and then we work consistently and hope that that would attract like-minded groups and individuals. I can't hear you. Sorry.
Thank
I
thank
think
you
you're
so
muted.
much. We're going to switch over to Grace for a minute. Grace, I have a question for you. It's very similar to the one I just asked Frio. You both have done amazing conservation work in your communities and made it sound fun, actually, despite being real work. So here's the question, Grace. How did you go about engaging your communities to participate, and what did you do to receive regular involvement in the work?
Great question. It is a lot of work and it can be fun, but it's more fun with more people. The work goes quicker. So we've had student groups join us when they need service hours. We've also had folks who are incarcerated join us when they need service hours, and they come with their, I don't know, whoever brings them in their van, and they have a great time. And they've been some of our, great workers. They're hard workers, and it brings the community together. It also helps us like rewrite stereotypes and narratives, getting to know people from all sides of our community. We've also had folks in recovery join us, getting service hours. So we've tried to spread the word. Recently, the last couple weeks, we've had trainees who were in job training, and they were actually getting paid a stipend. That was through a partner organization, and they helped us. I think we just got 230 more tires last week or something. It was, that's not even in the presentation. So getting folks, different partners, different organizations, and getting incentives, right? So like if you need service hours, or if we're able to connect them with somebody who has a stipend available. Right now, Friends of the Tug Fork doesn't offer a stipend, but if there's other groups that are, and we have the work to do, we can teach you guys how to do it, and anybody can do it. It's hard, but it's fun. We feed them lunch, usually lunch, dinner, depending on what time we're out there. And you get cool pictures and good bragging rights. Like you can talk about how many tires you picked out yourself. So it's fun.
I imagine some of those are true for Frio's program as well. There's a quick question that came in earlier for you, Grace. Is there a term for picking up trash while floating down a river?
I saw that. Good question, Bill. I don't have one, but you can make one up. Also, we're usually not floating when we're picking up trash. We're usually still walking. But I don't know. You could make one up. Kayak, logging. I don't know.
Frio, I'm going to give you a chance to reflect on something. This was a question that we got. How could we get government support and decision makers to put this effort that you described in legalized manner at the national level? And the secondary part of that question is for the best of accountability. But I think the first part of that's very important. How do we do that? How do we get government support and decision makers engaged so that it could go to a national level?
I think we have been successful in a way. Again, governments in the third world countries are, wary of the opposition. So the first thing when they see a movement, especially one like us, which is organic and which is not conventional, we're not registered, right? We don't have an office. You know, we just have a logo and the internet to mobilize people. So the first reaction would be, suspicion. Then they see, I'm sure, through their apparatus, the consistency of work, and the energy that we exude in the work that we do. And we resist direct or indirect, co-option by the government, because that would be the first thing, get you on board with them, and then allow them to own you. So we resist that and do what we do, and with evidence to what we say, then we push for the agenda, and then we've been successful in that regard. We've been successful in that regard.
Is some of the evidence that you talk about, and you talked about earlier, the amount of trash that's picked up? Is
Hmm.
that something you can quantify? I know that with Grace's program, they quantify the number of tires.
Yeah.
It seems difficult, but is that something you could do with your
Yeah,
program?
that's we do. I mean, every week, I mean, we weigh the plastic waste we collected, and also we share the distance we covered, walking and jogging. We also share the number of people who participated, and with pictures and everything. Very basic information. But at least, I mean, that shows the magnitude of the problem and
Sure.
also the level of participation of the people. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Priyo. Grace, I have a question for you. Has there been a noticeable difference in the river ecology in the areas for removal of tires?
Yeah, good question. So if you can imagine tires sinking into the bottom of a river, and a river that usually runs shallow, like between, like you're thinking like the water might be 2 or 3 feet deep in some sections. Um, Sediment is caught in those tires. And so when you go from a river that might be a little more compromised, it might have more mud, more silt, and then gradually, as you remove those tires that are stopping that sediment that's like sticking to the tires and to the area, gradually you see the riverbed become sandier. So that means the mud is flowing downstream. And then gradually after that, you may see the riverbed become more rocky. So like small stones and pebbles. And so that actually is indicating healthier river. So if the bottom of the riverbed is more rocky and more sandy rather than mud and silt, that has indicated that is flowing downstream. It's also going to help with flood mitigation. So the more tires that are removed, the more area we have, like your river will have to have the water in it. So it sort of is like changing the bottom of the river, right? It's changing the riverbanks and the riverbed to be more healthy and more natural. In 2025, we encountered one of the, I don't know, like biggest floods in our area for the last like 40 years. But the hope is, that didn't have a lot. I don't think that had much to do with the tires, but the hope is that as the tires continue to get removed, that we will then have less frequent and less extreme flooding, also healthier habitats for wildlife.
Well, thank you for that reflection. Good, Grace. I had a couple of quick questions. One is, it looked like from your slides that some of the areas that you went back to had more tires. Is that just a function of finding more tires in the same site, or are these tires still being deposited in the river or moving in the river?
Yeah, probably a little bit of all of those. It's really hard to tell exactly, but our suspicion, our prediction is that layers of sand and silt are getting washed away, and there's more tires beneath that. So that's our like best guess. Some are maybe moving downstream, but for the most part, they don't float real well and they're buried. And as we dig them up, they're buried pretty deep. We know they weren't thrown in the last couple months. But it could be in some areas. We also have a tire disposal trailer that's available. So the hope is to like people are bringing their tires to the disposal trailer instead of illegally dumping them. And that's been really successful the last couple of years as well to prevent those tires from ending up in the river.
Well, good. I did have a question about what happens to the tires that you collect. Are they recycled in some way, or is there some safe disposal?
Yeah, so there's not a high demand for tire recycling at all. So they are currently going to a monofill, which is a landfill for a single item. So think of like mono means one. So like a landfill that's just for tires. There's one in Kentucky and there's one in West Virginia. And so we've been able to send some tires to both of those.
Oh, thanks, Grace. Frio, I'm back to you. We'll get back to you, Grace. Don't worry. Frio, as you're not registered, your organization's not registered, and this is a social movement, how has been the reception from the Ethiopian government due to the
Mm.
national laws for CSOs? Do you have some comments on that?
Yes. In fact, I think the first thing that comes to mind when people hear about Plogging Ethiopia is, oh, so you are, an NGO, assuming that we are registered. And then I tell them, no, we only exist on the internet. We have a logo, we have a website, and we are not registered. Remember, we are testing a new model for social change, basically. So that includes engaging the government. So I've been, with the CSO officials, telling them about our movement. And I also serve as a chair of the advisory board of the Environmental Protection Authority of Addis Ababa, the city, and also board member of the Federal Environmental Protection Authority because of my role in Plogging Ethiopia. And they all know that we're not registered, which means, okay, it's a volunteers movement, and then there is tolerance. As I said, of course, they check us. I mean, they check whether we have any political agenda, inclinations. That's what they would be wary of. I mean, what we're doing is, to do with the environment, and also um, health, including mental health, physical health, and engaging the youth for environmental awareness and sustainability. They seem to be supportive. It does not mean that they will not crack down on us if they see any danger. But so far, so good.
Excellent. I have another question here. It's really addressed to both of you. Let me ask Frio to respond first, and then we'll get to you, Grace. Okay? Here's the question. I'll read it to you. What is coming up for me? This is the person that posed the question. In hearing both of these examples, is the power of human energy. I agree with that. It takes real time consuming cardio efforts of individuals to address pollution. I can only imagine that was a mindless work in seconds, the literal, the person. All right.
Mhm.
Um, can you share how these experiences have influenced how you think about direct or codify human energy for broader community change? Do you have any thoughts on that? And I can repeat that if you want me to.
I've read it. I've read it already. Uh,
Okay.
yeah, it is all about human energy and then positive energy in this regard. And I mean, what I've seen in the past, 5, 6 years is the power of attraction, basically. So this, people see and evaluate what you do, and the energy that you exude, be it in your writing, in what you do, um, is appealing to them. Even those whom we think are really high up there, politicians. In our case, the prime minister himself actually, we came across what he came across actually while we were plugging and saw us, stopped his car. He was driving himself. I know there is an Ethiopian in the group listening, and then he can attest to that. And the prime minister stopped and then talked to us, talked to me why we're doing it, and then we explained to him, okay, why we're doing it. And he encouraged us and left. That's not the story. The story is 4 months after that encounter, while he was addressing the parliament, he mentioned that as an example. And people ask me, why that? And did I lobby for that? No. Did I ask him to have it as an agenda item in the his parliamentary address? No. So how did that happen? That's the power of positive energy, basically. He couldn't shrug it off, although he had competing other agenda. He just picked that up and then talked about it. And people are calling me and then, oh, did you hear that the prime minister was talking about you? So that's the power of it, and then that's what pulls people. That's what I'm trying to refer to as organic. So like-minded people come together, and then we try to well, we want it, but then we'll be very careful to bring in other factors like finances, for instance, which would disrupt the dynamics uh, in that social movement. I don't know if this helps to answer the question.
No, I think that's great. Grace, can you respond to that? It's how these experiences have
Sure.
influenced how you think about or direct or codify human energy.
Sure. Yeah, I think a large part is education, but another part is still access and availability. As people are engaged in these opportunities to help us out and to volunteer, as I mentioned, we had job trainees the last couple weeks, and we picked up hundreds of bags of litter and hundreds of tires, and we joked the whole time. I was like, we'll never litter again. Like these people that we had helping with us were like, I bet you'll never throw trash down, or I bet we'll never dump a tire. And I think that's part of it. If we're participating in this, and especially young people, especially students, getting them out there and getting them to see what it really takes to undo the mistakes we've made, right? Whether that's individual mistakes or collective, of our community and individuals. But as I said, it's also accessibility. And unfortunately, Mingo County, like the county I'm in, still doesn't have a public dump. I mean, there's literally nowhere that you can get rid of your garbage for free. Luckily, we have the tire trailer that we can take our tires to. But you're still responsible for finding your own way to dispose of your garbage. And I'm sure that's similar all over the world. I'd be curious to hear from Frio as well. But if there's a garbage can in a park, yeah, that you should use the garbage can. But if your home doesn't have garbage pickup, it's a challenge. You're responsible for driving your garbage somewhere, a dumpster, or paying for somebody to remove it. So it takes a lot of different parts. I think publicity, engagement, continuing to spread that word, and news coverage always helps. But it really does. Even if you want to do better and you think about it and you're like, wow, I'd love to, not litter my trash, but we have to be able to make that easier for people.
Well, thanks, Grace. There's a follow-up question here in the chat. The areas you return to, is the access to the river easier? Thinking that may be why some of them are dumping them. But can you respond to that? That's specifically for you, about the areas on the river where people are dumping.
Yeah, so I would say I'm thinking of a couple river access points. We do have boat ramps and boat launches along the river. Some of those boat ramps do see dumping, and we did clean up a lot of those the last couple weeks as well, especially in the springtime. You want to get out there before the vegetation grows up. So yes to some of that, but no to the ones that are in the bottom of the river. Those are not, I don't think those are being re-dumped year after year. I really think that's from a century of improper disposal of tires. Maybe those are individuals, but also old service stations, right? So old tire shops. Decades ago, there was not the same rules about how to dispose of tires. So yes and no.
Great. Thank you, Grace. Frio, we have another question in the chat. Are there steps being implemented for more trash receptacles or recycling to be made more readily available to help eliminate the littering?
Mhm. Well, not through Plogging Ethiopia, but there is a citywide movement. Basically, the government has a bureau a waste management bureau of the city, and then and then there are waste collection points, and they take that into the sorting site and sort to, I mean, an attempt to sort, recyclables, biodegradables, and then what have you. It's still an attempt, but I think an attempt towards the right direction. So yeah, I mean, we see an effort towards that direction, especially as compared to other cities in Africa. That this seems to be doing the right thing, but there is a lot that needs to be done. Um, and then a lot in terms of raising awareness, a lot in terms of um, having a system to recycle, encourage recyclers. Yeah, yeah.
One follow-up question might be and we talked about this when Grace made her presentation, a little bit about the publicity, news, and things like that. Is there an effort to talk about what you're doing through the news, through the media?
Oh yeah. I mean, one thing that we've been very successful is the use of the media. As I mentioned earlier, we've been fortunate to draw the attention of all major media uh, outlets in the country. I mean, number one, I mean, the nature of the movement is intriguing for many. I mean, oh, they don't have money, and yet they have people to participate. Basically, people who pay, to come to the blogging sites, and also who pay, for their own um, shoes and there is no incentive, there is no stipend, nothing. They come because they like what we do. They come because they like the people they meet, and also they like because they enjoy cleaning the environment and exercising. I think that has been a main um, attraction point for the media. And I mean, to be honest with you, I'm very busy. I'm very busy. I have like one podcast and one major medium TV crew sort of waiting when my schedule opens to talk to me to do a documentary. So that has been really, really useful. And again, that happened organically. We didn't go to the media asking them to advocate, asking them to talk about that. They came to us. They came to us. Yeah.
Excellent. Get back to Grace for a minute. Grace, there's a comment in the chat about trash trout. And the reaction was the first thing I thought of was making fish art out of clean or sanitized trash. Can you tell us a little bit more about trash trout?
I can't hear Grace.
And we can't hear you, Grace.
Oh,
Well, Frio, I have a question for you. Just about the illustrations. Both presentations had great illustrations. What, tell us where they're just great. The three or four that you had in your slides were magnificent. Could you tell us a little bit more about how they were put together and who was involved in that? Was another organization helping you with that?
no. Well, basically taking advantage of AI. If you talk about, the graphics, so you have the idea and you kind of train, that and improve on it until it comes to the right presentation of what you want to share. I mean, once in a while we get people to help us with graphics, but I do that most of the time. So
Well, fantastic. We probably have time for one more question for each of you. In both presentations, and if you look in the chat, you'll see this question. You've been working about the same amount of time. Have you tracked your volunteer growth to see how the human energy has grown over the years. Go ahead, Frio.
Well, I don't have the number overhead, but I have the data. As I mentioned earlier, we keep track of the volunteers, the number, uh, uh, that participate in each plugging activity, the trash that we collect. Um, but it's possible to aggregate that information and share. Yeah, I have a plan actually to when the opportunity arises to write about this experience as a social change model, tested over 5, 6 years time, with me participating in it and then other volunteers as well. And then with that in mind, I've been collecting that information, that data, um, for future use.
Grace, are you able to give a
Yeah.
reaction to that?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Similarly, I don't have that data. I think somebody from our organization might be collecting it, and he might be listening on this call, but I don't know what it is, so I can try and get that to y'all if it's available.
Well, that would be quite interesting, especially the growth over time. It sounds like you both have gained a lot of traction and attracted a lot of interest and engaged, as you mentioned and Frio mentioned, from different types of groups have been involved. I wanted to see if there were any other questions. I think that's from my side. I've asked the 2 or 3 questions I had. Chris, I'm
Actually,
turning it over to
I'm
Chris.
gonna ask, I'm gonna ask this one live because I know I've seen in the past Freo has um engaged with some businesses that their trash has been found in parks and has reached out to them and so I'd like to hear how you have done that and like the success that you've had with that in particular.
Yes. So there are businesses in the park. So particularly one business which is in the hotel, and it's a resort basically. They have and then they were using part of not part of the park. I mean, the part of the park behind the restaurant as a pretty much a dumping site. So every week, we would go and talk to them, show them, and there was no response. So I decided to do a video without naming them, but since their logo was on the side, from the slippers, from the rooms, um, viewers picked that up, and then they said, "Oh," they started pointing. This resort that's doing that, and then the management called me immediately. The mayor of the city contacted them. Her communications director called me to get more explanation, and then I went and met them and told them that my interest is not to blackmail them. My interest is for them to be responsible in keeping, the park clean, and to make sure that they have a proper waste management system, and to stress that they went to the park, the other way around, so that they have responsibility. Um, and then they committed to do that, and not only that, to participate in our weekly plugging activity. So there is a group from that company that joins us every weekend for plugging.
Well, I wanted to take a moment to thank both our speakers, Frio and Grace, for the time they put into making the presentation, but also the time they've taken today to make the presentation, but also respond to these questions. Chris, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Oh, sorry, I dropped.
Freo, did you
Can you
have
hear
a
me?
last comment to make on your story? Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes, so they're back, and then we try to, monitor this so that it's not like greenwashing of our activity. And so far so good. So far so good.
Thank you, Freyo, and thank you, Tom, and thank you, Grace. Um, I appreciate you guys all coming together and sharing with us and having such a great discussion today. I think this is a wonderful discussion for Earth Day. I would like to go ahead and let you know that our next success sharing session will be in June with our alumnus from Liberia, Adolphus Dupli, who is going to be sharing on a community TB and HIV program that they have going on there. So please stay tuned um, to our web or our we'll be announcing this in Facebook and emails and everything else like you've seen the other ones, but I hope to see you in our next session. Thank you so much for joining us today, and you have a wonderful Earth Day.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.